Be interesting to dive into that functionality though, Sam, to find out if that flows all the way through inventory management and any potential recall or any other, from a quality standpoint, how deep that functionality goes to be able to understand what formula, revision, and version created a particular batch.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. The process manufacturing space is complex with several different PLM options as well as manufacturing processes that require completely different capabilities. Food manufacturing requires things such as yield management, while the process space might be super heavy with the versions and revisions of its formulas. There might also be other complications such as fleet management and e-commerce. An average process manufacturer needs a lot in an ERP. So how does ProcessPro differ from other manufacturing solutions? In today's episode, we invited a panel of industry experts for a live discussion on LinkedIn to conduct an independent review of Aptean ProcessPro's capabilities. We covered many grounds, including the differences between ROS and ProcessPro, even though both are Aptean's products and they both are positioned for process manufacturing industries. Finally, we discussed several other nuances of process manufacturing industries, such as versions and revisions, process-based costing, and DSD accounting. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you're joining for the first time, this is part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We always have an exciting plan, and we are always reviewing one of the vendors or the solution. For today, we have a solution called Aptean ProcessPro. So we are going to have a lot of fun discussing that. Before we do that, we are going to start with everybody's intros. I am going to start with my intro. If you don't know me, your host and principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. On that note, I am going to move to Dave for his intro.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Hey, everybody. My name is Dave Chrysler, and I own an operations consulting business working with leaders in manufacturing and distribution, helping them to systemize their business, optimize processes, and I come to you with more than 20 years of operational leadership roles, which included implementing a couple of ERP systems. So excited to be here with everybody. Thanks for having me, Sam.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Dave. Andy, can I ask you to introduce yourself next?
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for inviting me. My name is Andy Pratico. I've been in the ERP business for manufacturers all my life. I've worked all over North America. I've got a lot of experience with most systems out there. And I also have a published book on how to uncover the truth about ERP software before you buy, and hopefully it's helpful for some folks. Thank you very much, Sam, and I'm looking forward to the presentation.
Thank you so much for being here, Andy. And if you're in the audience and joining for the first time, make sure you guys post your questions and comments. We typically try to cover them during the show. If you run out of time, we'll make sure that you receive your answers. On that note, guys, we are probably doing 3 Aptean in a row, I guess. Last 2 were Aptean as well. So a lot of Aptean going on in this. So today, obviously this is ProcessPro. So first I am going to start with the brief overview of the corporate strategy of Aptean, and then we are going to compare this particular solution with some of the other products that we have reviewed. So I think we have been discussing that Aptean, the way they started, the strategy is very similar to the purpose-built solution. Namely, it's going to be your Infor, Epicor, ECI overall from the corporate strategy perspective. And then they are going to have a lot of different solutions in their portfolio, and that's why we have to review a lot of them. Now, one of the biggest confusion, even within the ERP community, the people who are consulting on a daily basis, they are always going to be confused about, okay, why do you have three solutions for process manufacturing? Okay, so today we are talking about process manufacturing, and this is going to be the Process Pro solution. Okay, last week, if I remember correctly, Andy, Dave, please correct me if I'm off here. I believe we reviewed Ross. Ross is also a process manufacturing. Before that, we had Exenta, and that is your apparel sort of. Exenta does not do retail. It's really very apparel manufacturing solution. So here we are talking about the process manufacturing as well. So we will talk about the differences between Process Pro as well as Ross. And I don't know if I'm going to be close. Maybe Andy, you might know a little bit if you have come across them ever. Any background by any chance? Andy, you are mute.
With Process Pro? Oh yeah. I run across it once in a while.
Both of them, do you know the specific differences? In your opinion, how are they positioned?
With Ross?
Yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ross is usually targeted at larger companies, whereas Process Pro is usually a bolt-on to an existing accounting system like QuickBooks or Sage 50 or one of those types of systems.
That's very interesting observation, and we'll review and we'll vet that using the commentary that we have in the reviews. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be close, to be honest, in terms of their position, our research, and where we have come across them in our deals, to be honest. But I really don't think it is going to be a size, to be honest. And Process Pro, if you look at their marketing material, I think they, as per at least their PR, they have claimed that it was one of the most comprehensive process manufacturing solution in general. And this is the SQL Server base. They have their own accounting. So obviously, it's a full-fledged solution. I don't know, Andy, if you are getting confused a little bit because there are other products in their portfolio, such as BC Food. BC Food was the add-on on top of your Business Central. So Aptean does have some of the add-ons that's it on top of other ERP system, but Process Pro, Ross, as well as your Exenta, they are fully featured, purpose-built ERP system. So I'll tell you in my mind, where these two sort of hang out. So the way we have reviewed Ross was more of the food manufacturing solution, the way their screens were, the way their feet were. And again, in the process manufacturing space, there are a lot of different layers. Okay. So some solutions are going to be slightly better fit for the food manufacturing. The other ones are going to be slightly better fit for the real process. And where we are talking about the process, this is going to be probably chemical manufacturing. Okay, is the classic example. Okay, so in my mind, and the closest comparison for Process Pro is going to be Batchmaster. And I don't know if you're familiar with Batchmaster. Batchmaster was the go-to solution.
Maybe Batchmaster was the one I was thinking of that integrates to QuickBooks and Sage 50.
That would be the right assessment.
That's probably where I got it wrong. Yeah. Okay.
That would be the right assessment. So Batchmaster, the way the company was structured, they were the most prominent in the SAP Business One space, I would say. I think they did a lot of business on top of Sage because in general, most Sage solutions were very accounting focused. In general, the way the Sage solutions are built. So Batchmaster did a lot of business on top of your SAP, Sage, some other ones in the mid-market, but for the most part, those were their go-to-market verticals. They have also developed their process manufacturing solution and the quality solution on top of Acumatica. Very similar strategy, but very new solution from the technology perspective. Okay, initially they were more of the bolt-ons using their UI, and they were sort of plugging in with every single ERP system out there. But now with Acumatica, they have taken slightly different approach that the solution is very natively built inside Acumatica. So that's the story of Batchmaster. But here, Process Pro is going to be very comparable, but Process Pro is the fully featured ERP system for the same process vertical that Batchmaster targets. That's my understanding of the solution. Again, we'll review, and maybe Andy, you are going to have some more commentary once we get through these slides, once we observe, okay, what kind of customers,
Absolutely.
right?
There's one comment that I've been told by many of their customers for Process Pro is, and whether or not this is true or just rumors, you never know. But they've told me that since Aptean has taken them over, there hasn't been much for upgrades.
That's the strategy that Aptean likes to pursue in general. Okay, that's their go-to-market strategy. They are going to buy these legacy solutions. They are going to change the marketing. That is number one. Okay, if you look at the marketing material, they are probably going to be better than Acumatic and H3. Okay, it's all going to be yellow because very Swedish color, I guess. It's always going to be, and that's the Vista equity mindset. Any of their portfolio companies are always going to be yellow. And I don't know if that is the IKEA, mindset as well. IKEA is very yellow in color. It's very consistent. If you actually observe all the companies in the Vista equity portfolio and Aptean before they were about to go bankrupt, we all know that. And then Vista equity bought it, and then they changed the go-to-market strategy. So now, obviously, they are doing far better in general overall from the company. So Vista Equity financially, they did wonders with the company. Their go-to-market strategy worked. There's no question. Okay, but their go-to-market strategy was always, hey, I'm going to buy these legacy solutions. I am not going to invest in the R&D. Okay, there is no point in investing in the R&D because the way sales deals are done, everybody cares for the demo as long as you are showing them pretty screens.
Yeah.
And pretty PowerPoints.
Right.
Nobody really knows what's underneath.
As long as the screens are pretty, the majority don't look under the covers. You're right.
Exactly. So that is the strategy. And finance people, the sales people, they're really, really smart in that. Okay, they really know how to invest their money. So obviously, all of these companies that are very purpose-built, they were all started by finance people, and they started sort of reorganizing their dollars in terms of where to spend. So you are absolutely right. When Aptean acquires, they do not re-architect their system. Okay, some of the systems are probably going to have COBOL, and that's the reality of a lot of systems in the market. They might have fancy cloud native UI, and you as a buyer are never going to know unless you program.
So they have put some money into the GUI, into the front end.
So there are typically 3 layers, Andy, right? So you have the front end, you have the service layer, you have the back end. Okay. Typically, database is the hardest to change in general.
Right.
Okay. Once database is almost like shaking the foundation of your house.
You might as well write a new system.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very, very hard to change that. And that's why the foundational problem, if there are going to be with any of the ERP system from the database perspective, they are very, very, very hard to change. And that's why you will see a lot of issues. Even though the systems that are trying to claim themselves as cloud native, they cannot have the same capabilities. For example, let's say if you talk about the double tabbing of the systems, okay? Some systems, they are going to claim that they are cloud native, but you cannot open 2 tabs, okay? Because it was never sort of architected as the cloud native. Universal search, first thing that you are going to notice. Universal search is, if I were polite, then it's pure trash. Okay, it's that bad. So it's not going to work because the database is not designed for the modern experience, So again,
Sam, this whole concept about front end service and the back end, and you know how you do your top 10 ERPs and different targets. It might be good to put together a comparison list like that on the ones that have redone their front end but still have the old back end. Pros and cons from that.
Yeah, and there is only so much you can do with these lists, I guess, unless you have very complicated grid, the chemistry grid, I guess, that is going to have 256 different layers that you need to analyze. And by that time you put that as the marketing material, people get that.
It would be nice to make it simple so that the average person would understand that concept. That's all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's why we are trying to commercialize the idea of fake cloud, Andy. Okay. I don't know whether
fake
you heard
cloud. This. Yeah, but the problem is that no one knows what you mean when you say fake cloud. They go, okay.
Exactly. That's why you need to hire experts to do the selection.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, when you look at the whole experience of fake cloud, Aptean, obviously, they are not investing anything in technology, which means they are not even changing the UI. Some companies are,
okay.
Yeah. Some companies, what they have done is For example, let's say if you look at companies like UAD, the underlying layer is still going to be very COBOLish, or the RPG, or again, I wasn't born in those days, so Andy, you are probably far more informed.
Well, me and Rip Van Winkle, yeah.
Exactly. So, so those companies, what they have done is they have created this UI layer, which is very cloud native. At least they have replaced that. Obviously, there are technology limitations in terms of what you can do, even in the front end layer. If your database is going to be really legacy, it's very, very, very hard to replicate that experience. So that's why you have all of these challenges in these systems when you look at the cloud native experience. But the only thing they have done is they have simply changed the front end, the service layer, and sometimes you can probably do the connection using your mainframe terminal as well. It's that bad. Okay, so they are doing data translation and they are trying to pretend that they have a real, relational database, but they typically
let me ask you a question, and it might be more of a generic question, Sam, as opposed to specific with Aptean. But when you have these companies that are buying these ERPs, older legacy type systems, and basically milking the maintenance because they're not reinvesting in R&D, how long before the product loyalty starts to erode so that they have to start putting R&D?
I don't think that's the strategy that Aptean takes. The way that's my understanding, at least, of their corporate strategy, because the only company that is acquiring in 2023 is Aptean.
Right.
And why are they acquiring? Okay, if you really think about it, okay, private equity, the way private equity works, they take 5 years roadmap. They want to milk the company within 5 years. Okay. If you look at the legacy technology, 5 year is very, very, very short time.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to take 5 years before loyalty starts eroding. Okay.
Oh, so we'll let that to the next owner's problem.
Exactly. So I'm not sure if they are going to, let's say, kill those products afterwards or what they are going, but their approach is that, okay, I'm going to keep my support, I'm going to keep my services inside Aptean. I'm not going to worry about this whole channel, because then I need to do a lot more documentation. Okay, I need to put a lot of work, and then everybody's going to know what's underneath. So if I keep everything within these four walls, then who's going to know? I mean, I'll be supporting, So that's the mindset in general, which is very interesting. I mean, from the customer's perspective, because customers also don't know, what's underneath. They are only going to know when they start customizing these systems, and they are going to run into those issues. If you look at the other systems, which are going to have the database layer as well as your service layer, and that is going to be exposed to the customers, they kind of know what they have underneath. Okay. So if it is, and not every system is exposing that, especially the ones that are super legacy. The only thing they have changed is the front end, then we have a real problem with it. And that's why you will see those in reviews, because at the end of the day, people have started this using for like 4 or 5 years, and then all of a sudden they are going to get this RPG patch, COBOL patch. Then customers know that there's something going on. SysPro, it's very common. SysPro, I think the only thing they have done is probably their UI. So SysPro still has
very much so.
The RPG.
They've done a really good job with their UI. The back end is still the same. But you know what we call that type of ERP in the industry? Lipstick on a farm animal.
Exactly. And that farm animal is so beautiful, Andy.
I know. I could have said something else, but I thought I'd just be a little more PC. You know me, I'm always PC.
I know you, Andy. Okay. Any other comments before we move on to the slides? No? Great. Okay. Great conversation, by the way. Okay. So here we have some commentary coming from Aptean. So this is coming from November 2020. And this is the news. So 2020 is when they have announced that they were going to acquire this company. So here they are saying announce the acquisition of OpenSys adoptable solutions. So they used to be called OSAS, and they are saying headquartered in Minnesota. So obviously they were US based, which is very interesting because for the most part, what Aptean was targeting, they were targeting primarily the Eastern Europe market a lot. Especially in 2023. So this was the US acquisition. Lately, they have not targeted this market, but in this particular case, they had targeted, So here they are saying OSAS serves nearly 2,500 manufacturing, distribution, and services customers across North America and has built a strong reputation for its industry-leading ERP solutions. Now, Andy, when you get into I think I mentioned this last time as well, when you get into the nuances of process manufacturing, there are a lot of different layers, okay? And there are industries where a lot of solutions cannot work because the process manufacturing is very nuanced, the way it works. You are not going to have, even if you have, let's say, the process manufacturing solution, on top of that, you have to build a lot of customization to make it usable for your industry. For example, let's say if you compare this with Sage X3. Okay, Sage X3 is a quote unquote process manufacturing, but that also requires a ton of add-ons as well as customization for these process verticals. In general, the process
Is
verticals
that
are
right? I didn't know that. Oh.
yeah, they are very complex, very complex. Each industry could be extremely complex. They have manufacturing, they have distribution, they have logistics, they have quality, they have compliance. The PLMs that you have, each patch has very different PLM. In general, the way their project management, the way their NPD process, supply chain, everything is so very different. So here they are talking about, so here they are listing the industries as food and beverage, specialty chemicals, manufacturing, personal care, cosmetics, and pharmaceuticals. The deals that we have come across, ProcessPro, they were mainly into the chemical sort of manufacturing, and they are going to be chemically related manufacturing is what we have come across. And ND, in terms of size, I think we have seen a lot of companies that were in that $100 to $500 million range, and they were doing okay. Yeah, they were outgrowing, and that's why they came to us to be.
Wow.
So this is a decent size solution. This is not a small.
Okay.
Yeah. So here, over the past 3 years, OSAS has built on its impressive track record with the release of its global solutions. And this is where they were saying that whatever we have, nobody else has in the market with the kind of depth they have in the solution. That is probably right as well. Because the depth that you need in this industry, it's mind-blowing, the amount of functionality that you need. And these solutions can capture. I mean, none of the horizontal solutions can match their depth. And that's why companies really like to go for these. But when you are going to hit that $500 million mark, you are probably looking for best of breed architecture because it's very hard to bring those 5,000 people on one table to be. So it could be hard to sort of sell a package solution in those verticals. But it's very interesting that they can provide so much functionality as part of the same solution. Here they are saying OSAS will be able to extend Aptean's complementary offerings to its customers and leverage Aptean's global scale to accelerate its growth. So basically what Aptean was looking for from this acquisition is, number one, they would take this solution globally in the market. That's number one. And number two, obviously they have a lot of follow-on offerings that they like to sell. So their goal would be to sell WMS, TMS, PLM, integrate all of that. Don't invest in the R&D, but integrate. Pre-baked integration is where they specialize. That's what they are trying to do. So rather than changing the database, they are going to integrate and sell as bundled solution. But they can also sell as the individual solution. Any comments, guys?
No, it's all very interesting.
Okay. So here is the comparison, and this is where it gets really interesting overall when you start comparing solutions such as ROS and ProcessPro. And I don't think a lot of people really understand the difference. But this is coming from one of the affiliate sites, and they have done decent job, I would say, at least comparing the features. So here, Aptean ROS, they are saying it has food manufacturing, it has recall management, and it has ERP. Not everything is visible here, but if you look at ERP features, they are fairly comparable, okay? So the interesting part here is you have the accounting integration, accounting management, CRM, dashboard, and that's common in both of them. You have the distribution management. The only thing that is missing from ProcessPro, which is interesting in my mind, they don't have enterprise asset management, okay? They both have financial management. The ProcessPro has HR management, but ROS does not have HR management, right? So my theory based on why it is so, and I don't know if there is something wrong with the site itself, but I'll tell you my understanding of this, and maybe you guys can tell me if you guys have any sort of insights there. Typically, the enterprise asset management you are going to see in a lot of food and beverage verticals. That's where you have a lot more need in general of the enterprise asset management. So that's why we are seeing the enterprise asset management in the Aptean ROS, and I didn't even know what I was talking about before I looked at it.
Just to clear, obviously, when you say enterprise asset management, it can mean a lot of things. But under that umbrella, preventive maintenance would be in that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So two things. Number one, I think the way when people use enterprise asset management versus sort of the fixed assets, those two terms are used together in general. Fixed asset term is used more from the finance,
Accounting side.
accounting. Exactly. The enterprise asset management is going to be more from the production side of the house. This is what my shop floor operators are going to care for when they have the enterprise health and safety, preventive maintenance, doing scheduling around maintenance office. That's going to be critical as well. Now, I would think that even in verticals such as your chemicals, probably enterprise asset management is going to be key, but they don't have it there because maybe because they don't have as expensive assets. That could be the reason why they don't have that.
Or they rely on the third-party bolt-on, like you were describing earlier.
Exactly. And typically the way these companies try to acquire, buy, build functionality is going to be whatever is going to be most critical for the functionality, they will try to house that inside the solution. And that will give you a little intel in terms of where this particular solution is positioned. So now let's compare this with the some of the other solutions that we have reviewed in the recent past in the similar industry. For example, let's say QAD. Okay, QAD and probably IQMS as well. Okay, that is probably going to be comparable to ProcessPro because IQMS does really well in the plastics space. They do really well in a little bit of automotive. Everybody's sort of positioned in automotive, but then they have their own flavors as well. What is automotive for everybody? Some people are some solutions are sort of positioned for the suppliers. Some are positioned for plastic suppliers. Some are positioned for OEMs because those are very different business models in general. Okay, so I don't know. I mean, one of the hints that you might get from this is whether QAD has enterprise asset management. My theory is going to be probably they don't. They are not going to be as in general. So, and probably IQMS as well. I don't know how strong they are going. So that could be your sort of way of looking at, okay, when you are comparing the solutions of ProcessPro, is going to be compared with these solutions that are positioned in chemicals, plastics. That's where it is probably going to do really well. Now,
Both these products offer a laboratory module, lab module.
And I'm not even going to try that word because if Andy is struggling, I don't know what is going to happen to me.
It was laborious.
Laborious. I mean, let's just call it labs, man. It's just easy.
Labs
I don't know why
easier.
You have to make it so complex.
I know.
Let's just call it labs, okay? So labs, easy peasy. I don't know if you know what? I think ProcessPro will position themselves in the labs space as well.
They are sure definitely.
Ross is definitely not there. I guarantee.
Well, with the quality, it's underlying quality management on ProcessPro, and that's usually overlaps with lab testing and such like that.
Quality management is going to be relevant in every single space, I would say. I don't know why Aptean Ross does not have quality here, even in the food space and the lab space. So I think you were referring to this one, right? ProcessPro or Ross? This is Ross. This is ProcessPro, Andy.
Yeah, both of them are right there. Yeah, these are the two I was talking about. Yeah.
So Ross does not seem to be, I don't know how much quality they have because at least this site did not mention that they have quality. So I think the labs, the pharma, the cannabis, all of that is going to be bundled under process. This is more of the food manufacturing, which is not as much into your process manufacturing as well as, again, depending upon the depth of the process manufacturing. Okay, do you guys have any other comments or shall I move on?
No.
Okay, so here one more announcement coming from ProcessPro. So this is coming from 2017. And here they are saying ProcessPro announces new ERP software solution. So this is where they had launched their global capabilities. ProcessPro Global, the next generation of batch process manufacturing. So they are defining themselves as batch manufacturing software. Now, batch is a very interesting term, Andy. I don't know whether you would use batch for food manufacturing or not. Batch is typically used. Go ahead.
Well, Andy? I was going to say, most process manufacturers are batch manufacture. You've got continuous flow, which is certainly completely different, but those are two types, generally speaking, continuous flow, batch process.
So none of these are actually positioned for continuous flow.
No,
I don't know any ERP system that can work in continuous flow. I think I made that comment before as well.
Completely different requirements.
And they typically have, the only ERP solutions that I've seen there, to be honest, is going to be Microsoft. Sage probably is very common in those verticals as well. IFS is probably going to be very common there too.
Yes.
And the only reason why they are there is because of the financials as well as the asset management. And that's why if you look at the market positioning of IFS, the way they like to position, they don't even call themselves sort of an ERP, to be honest, because, I don't know if they are really an ERP, right? So they have three different legs of their solution. One is going to be your finance and accounting. Then you have the asset management and then field service. So those three. Now, obviously, these three are equally relevant for the ERP solution. No questions there. But the way oil and gas and the continuous flow is going to use these solutions for operations, they are going to have completely different, software. And when you are doing some ad hoc sort of accounting, because you cannot do the real accounting because the process is so complex in general, right? So they somehow need to segment, okay, where the process ends, because you don't sort of have the project job to define, okay, what's your costing? So it becomes very difficult there. So I know that some of the ERP systems are there in the market, and I don't know if they are more of the operational system, but they are positioned for continuous flow. So this is not continuous flow at all. Okay, this is all for the process manufacturing, where you are going to have some sort of job or some sort of that you are releasing and fixed. You have the start and finish.
Production order.
Exactly, you have a start and finish. I guess that's how I would define it. It's
Sure.
not continuous flow.
It might be a daily production, but you're right, start and finish.
Right, but even in this case, when they have the daily production, they still have the number and the orders that they are releasing. May not be in chemical, I guess. Chemical may be different, so you may be right. Chemical is definitely different.
Well, it depends. Chemical is like a kind of a hybrid. It can be batch, it can be continuous process.
You are right. You are absolutely right. And that could be applicable for pharma as well. So you are right. So I don't know how much capabilities these guys have, but I mean, that's where it gets really interesting overall when you look at the chemical space. Here they are saying the power and backing of Microsoft. So they are saying ProcessPro Global is built from the ground up on leading edge Microsoft technology. They were leading edge in 1980s, not anymore, guys.
Is this a client server type system?
I mean, 90% of the ERP systems are probably built on Microsoft.NET SQL Server.
Right.
And that's probably the reason why it is so hard for them to build this cloud native architecture in general, because the way Microsoft technologies work traditionally, they were very Windows centric. Okay. They were never sort of, if you look at the other ecosystem, they were slightly more service oriented architecture. For them, it was just easier to migrate to cloud native architecture.
So the cloud offering with these guys is probably going to be single tenant.
That's okay. So again, that's debatable. I would not say single tenant.
Okay.
Again, there are so many different layers in cloud in terms of how you look at it, right?
Oh, I know.
So when you look at the single tenant, that is the deployment perspective. You have the user experience perspective, you have the deployment, you have the financial, you have the operations. There are so many different layers of looking at cloud. Everybody has sort of found the shortcut, especially the legacy vendor, and they are only trying to focus on things that customers care for and customers understand. The other thing they are never going to understand. So in this particular case, they have the .NET SOA as well as the SQL Server designed for adaptability to meet the unique requirements of clients' specific business while staying current with the latest standard release. So here they are saying the breadth of the global ERP application set is more comprehensive than any other ERP system in the market. Manufacturing, inventory, quality, financials, and sales are supplemented with warehouse management, compliance, point of sale. Can you believe this, guys? Okay, so they have the retail perspective, which is your point of sale. So they have physical stores that they are trying to. Then they have logistics. Then they have e-commerce, distribution, quality, compliance. So the depth and breadth of functionality that you need in this industry, it's mind-blowing. Okay, direct store delivery, maintenance and repair. Can you believe this? Field service, fixed assets, project accounting, guys, payroll, human resources, and much more. The critical business needs of process manufacturers are inherently built into the global software. Again, it's pretty much everything. I don't know anything that is probably left here. The whole gamut of
the devil's always in the details, but there's no question they're nailing all the different functionality you're looking for.
Typically, the smaller the system, the more functionality you are going to find. Okay, that's given in general. So functionally, if you are going to be comparing, it's not a real comparison. Okay, you just don't know what you are buying. It's that simple. You need to get into technology to be able to understand these things. Okay, so here they are saying, some of the key functionality here. So they have easily develop and maintain formulas and recipes, including revisions and versions. So I think we have seen the revisions term in a lot of different discrete verticals, but here they have versions as well. And I don't know, I mean, Dave, Andy, if you guys have any sort of insight there in terms of how they correlate, but they have both, and both are going to be equally relevant. Yeah, I mean, in general, their program management process very involved, the way it works, and that's why they have to have multiple. So I don't know if the version is going to be more that is related to outside world versus Revit. I don't know. I don't know how they overlap.
Be interesting to dive into that functionality though, Sam, to find out if that flows all the way through inventory management and, you know, any potential recall or any other, you know, from a quality standpoint, how deep that functionality goes to be able to understand, you know, what formula revision and version, you know, created a particular batch to then flow through the rest of the system.
Honestly speaking, I mean, it's all over the place across the processes, and that's why it is so difficult. It's not going to be just, okay, I'm calling something version in my engineering, and production does not need to care about that. I don't think it works that. I think it does go to production because and we'll look at that screen. The screens are actually going to have the versions as well. Otherwise, you can probably use your, you know, discrete manufacturing. And that's why this becomes really interesting, because you have to track that throughout the process. And recall is a great example, a great point, Dave, there. The other, you know, terminology that we are seeing here is production, private label, contract manufacturing. These three are very different businesses, and they can accommodate all three. Can you believe this? Again, operational complexity in terms of the business model. It's just mind-blowing in this space. Then you have the R&D. In R&D, we have some commentary here. So we are talking about interfering current production runs, i.e. leverage existing cost history while seemingly adding new items for R&D. That's very interesting as well, the way their program management and the R&D. They are R&Ding a lot because this is almost very similar to fashion, to be honest, because some of these verticals, for example, let's say if you talk about food, they always have to come up with new products, new tastes, new recipes, new formulas. So in general, the NPD process is very involved, and they dictate a lot of processes in terms of what solution they are going to be using. So it gets really interesting when you are talking to R&D. Typically, with the ERP processes, R&D is not going to be involved as much. But in fashion, they are definitely going to be involved. In these verticals, they are definitely going to be.
Sam, you mentioned that QAD is going to be targeting a similar target market as the Process Pro, and you mentioned Process Pro between 100 million and 500 million in size companies. So do you think that's the same target size for QAD?
I would think QAD is slightly bigger.
QAD is slightly bigger? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I would think that too.
Yeah, they were always targeting global markets. They were always localized in at least 30 countries. That's my understanding. So we have already reviewed the PR for these guys, and they globalized in last 2-3 years. So how much localization are they going to have? Most likely they must have developed for Europe, because obviously Aptean is trying to go there, because Aptean is already present there. So now they are trying to sell in that market. But for the most part, this is not meant to be a global solution. This must be more of the North American solution, the way Bashmaster was, the way Acumatica is. Yeah, these are not necessarily global solutions. But QAD, they were always global in general. So that's a real difference. Here we have the lot traceability. Lot traceability gets very interesting as well. So they are talking about audit and recall needs with full forward and backward lot numbers. Forward and backward lot number genealogy is another term that is very unique, and that gets very interesting in general in this phase. On all raw materials, work in progress, and finished good from PO receipt through final sale. And my understanding of genealogy is going to be the process is going to be very similar to raw. The way we saw the whole recallability thing, but it might be slightly more involved in terms of the layers that you are going to have, of your traceability. I think that's where I would think. And those layers are going to be extremely important even in the field service space when you are targeting automotive. And that's probably the reason why there is always overlap between your automotive, food and bev, chemicals. For some reason, these solutions are always targeting discrete as well as process. rather than targeting all discrete, all process.
Right.
So
do it. Yeah. Stay in your lane. Do what you do best.
no, but I mean, the way their items and products are designed, there is some very interesting overlap that automotive seem to work. And the other reason is because for automotive, you need to develop the compliance, but you have these plastic manufacturers that are trying to sell to automotive. So
And
they need the quality.
long run, repetitive type manufacturing.
That's where the overlap comes, because see, initially,
Yeah.
if you look at Plex, they all started in automotive. They started selling to automotive discrete manufacturers, but then they had to sell to plastic because some people are going to be vertically integrated. So your solution is not going to work. So now you have to develop your process manufacturing capability, sell to plastic. So now you are selling to plastic all of a sudden. It's very interesting the way go-to-market strategy works for ERP solutions. So here we have the quality control and compliance, complete in-process and customer-specific testing at any point of production, seamlessly generate certificates of analysis is very common in oil and gas, in chemical industries, because when you are going to work with these large OEMs, they require certificate of analysis as part of your shipment. If you don't have that, they cannot accept. So that is actually part of your recallability. I think that is going to be common in the automotive, oil and gas, chemicals. So these are some of the spaces where you definitely need those processes. Here, accounting for production limitations and lead time. Interesting. Production floor by work order or batch ticket, accounting for organics as well as the allergens. I guess those two are going to be very common in the pharma space, in the cannabis space. So yeah, so that's very interesting as well. MRO is very common, and again, that's sort of a little overlap with IFS. Then you have the specific testing and generation of COFA for individual customers to meet the compliance with feature support, supply chain control, and then you have the nutritional labeling, quality management, and the SDS authoring. Those are going to be significantly complex overall in this, and that's where you need very comprehensive quality management, and they were really strong at that. And then obviously you have the FDA compliance, so they can support that as well. Comments, guys, or are we good?
That's good.
Okay, perfect. So some more commentary here. DSC, that's very interesting. Never saw that before, I guess, so that's why I highlighted that. Extends the functionality of the POS system with on-the-road accessibility. Okay, so the only place where you are going to find this DSD functionality, okay, in your DCOM. DCOM is also designed for process manufacturing, and the whole route accounting is very different, the way it works, okay? If you don't have route accounting for these businesses, your accounting is not going to work. Can you believe this? Okay, so they have this functionality. So DSD is very common. I can almost guarantee that maybe Odoo is probably going to have layers of that, because they target restaurant, they target very similar verticals as well. So here on the road accessibility, allowing you to go mobile with your order entry, invoicing, and payment transaction. Again, very complex in general. And a lot of chemical companies, they have to have their in-house fleet, because some of those chemicals you are not going to find a 3PL that can carry your liquid. So you have to figure your thing out. You see this problem in the frozen food manufacturing as well. They cannot, or even if they find 3PL, they don't have profit margin to be able to support. So they have to build their own fleet. And that increases the operational complexity. And that's why they have that. Comments? No?
Well, it's interesting on the one where it says B2B e-commerce offers web portal access to customers for self-service sales without the need for a third-party e-commerce solution. Now, it depends what they mean there, of course, because they're still going to need a van, right?
B2B e-commerce could be portal exposed
Sure,
to your...
not e-commerce.
That's not B2B
It should be a portal, right? That's probably what they're talking about.
That's
Yeah.
not B2B. Okay,
Right.
and B2B commerce could also be SAP Hybris, which is
Right.
probably $1 billion solution. So again, don't go by the bullet points of the
Yeah,
specs. I mean, they don't mean a lot.
So often you see ERP companies calling an e-commerce solution an EDI, which is not.
So if you guys don't have any other comments, so here is the screens, and we always like to look at the product. So here, very similar look as your Microsoft product. If you compare this with Microsoft GP, you are probably going to get similar look and feel. Because this is what is Microsoft architecture. This is what Microsoft has mandated. So every single application that is built on Microsoft stack is probably going to look similar, but they all struggle in going to cloud. because that is very expensive in general. The whole development is very expensive, because in the older days when you were on-prem, you could utilize your own laptop for testing. Now you have to pay for your server, even to develop, even to test. So that increases the cost for everybody, and that's what is the challenge. And that's why we had so many legacy solutions in the on-prem world, and they're really struggling to migrate to cloud because cloud is expensive. Here, and again, I don't know how modern this is going to be. I think these screenshots, and by the way, one of the things that you are going to notice, okay, if you try to look up for any demos whatsoever about these solutions on YouTube, publicly, any screenshots, you are not going to find anything. Can you believe this, guy?
No.
Zero documentation. The only place where you can look at the product is going to be during a sales.
Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
So are these screens relatively current?
6 screenshots all over the internet. Unless you are under NDA and you are a customer, you don't know what. That's how closed these ecosystems are. Can you believe? And it's a challenge for us. I mean, see, the people who are doing this based on information, because we just don't have enough information. Unless the vendor is feeding you, and they can be selective about what they want you to look. So it could get really tricky in general. But these ecosystems are extremely close. They are purposely not trying to release any information so that customers just don't know what they are getting. Very, very, very close. So let's look at some of the reviews, and this is probably a misfit in my mind. So here the customer is the sales manager, and they are from consumer electronics, mid-market, 51 to 1,000 employees. And can you believe? So this is a fairly sizable organization. Okay, 2018.
That's
so fairly
quite a range, 51 to 1,000.
I agree, but let's look at the review and see if we can find, whether they are going to be closer to 51 or probably to 1,000. Okay, so here they are saying ProcessPro was the first ERP that tool that used, and I had perfect experience with that software. Their customer service is just amazingly responsive and friendly. By the way, the customer service comment is probably for the ProcessPro team. In general, when these private equity owned companies or the publicly traded companies are going to acquire any mom and pop solution, their service is going to change completely. Okay, you cannot expect the same experience. Okay, these are more of the consulting organizations. That's why they're okay. So this is completely changed. I guarantee this. Okay, so now they are saying the easiest application I saw to set up and use. Their price is also reasonable, useful application. We didn't experience with any big problems except scrolling, syncing, and freezing errors. No problems, guys.
Which are small mistakes.
Exactly. What's a big deal, guy? It just freezes a couple of times.
The next one that I find really interesting, though, Sam, the next sentence.
It was used for 8-9 months in our company.
We used it for 8 or 9 months, and then we had to replace it.
Exactly, because we needed software to use for larger projects and big data. So obviously the person does not understand the production process, and that's why he's using the term big datas. But I think where they really struggled, and that's why I was thinking that this is probably a wrong product. They shouldn't have bought that. Consumer electronics.
They used it for 8 or 9 months, but that was enough for them to put this comment on the internet. But they don't really have any experience at all.
Use meaning they were in the implementation, so basically it never went live. That would be my understanding of it.
They probably found about before going live that it didn't handle what they needed for projects, so therefore they moved on. Isn't that something?
Exactly, and businesses are really smart. I mean, they do go through the implementation process, but if they don't feel comfortable, they don't go live. Because one thing you don't want to do, you just don't want to. You don't want to be at a place where you are going live and you are not confident on the software. That's it. You'll be done, man. You have no idea how bad it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Here they are talking about inventory coordinator, warehouse supervisor in the US. So we don't really have the industry, but here 51 to 200 employees, food and bev. This is probably okay. Again, food. This is not designed for food and bev in my mind. This is designed more for process manufacturing. So let's see. But they are still going to be happy. So here 4 years ago. So this is very recent. They are saying, I like that it's built specifically for process manufacturing. And that is right as well, that it is really built for that. Now, there is not a lot of customizing to be done since it's so ready out of the box, which is true. Okay, the way these solutions are designed, you just don't have to customize. But make sure you buy the whole box, replace everything from your architecture. Don't try to rip and replace because it's not going to work. Okay, so if you are willing to replace everything, then probably these are better. Don't selectively buy these solutions. My only complaint is that the user interface isn't the best it could be. I told you, once you start using, then you will realize how bad the user experience is. But most users don't really have that technical background to be able to understand, why the user experience is so bad. But it is bad because, what you have underneath is really.
Well, they're not putting the R&D. And when you're putting R&D in an ERP, the first thing you do is make the GUI look nice.
Exactly, but there is only so much you can do, Andy, with the UI. If your database is going to be limited,
depends what tools you have too, right? I mean, when you have an older technology type system, you're going to have limited tools to make the screens look better.
It's the data model that is typically limiting. Data model is the biggest problem in general. Yeah, data model as well as the functionality. For example, let's say a lot of older systems, they didn't understand what quote means. Okay, in the traditional one, they didn't have to worry about quotes. They were getting the orders and that's it, right? So they had just flag called quote inside your order. So they didn't have an object called quote. But then the CRM process has evolved over the period of time, and then everybody had to. So now that data model still exists in a lot of different systems. Changing that is a nightmare. You can't change that. Some more review.
This is older though.
I know it's older. Do you guys want to cover this, or do you guys have comments?
Sure, what the heck? It's interesting to see what he says, but it's.
Go, Dave.
Yeah, just reading through this, I thought this was interesting. He talks about being a CFO for a vitamin and supplement manufacturer, and that previous to that, he was an accounting and software consultant before, which is part of the reason it sounds like they led to ProcessPro. But speaks very highly of it. Doesn't say how large the company is, but sounds like it company grew pretty significantly utilizing this solution from 1 to 5 separate facilities over the course of some amount of time. So this was quite a few years ago, though, 11 years. So
the only comment I would have here is, Dave, if you look at the comment below, so they are saying with the help of a ProcessPro specialist, we recently implemented the automated warehouse system. So I don't know what all they have implemented. Typically what these guys do is they are going to utilize the ERP just as the transactional system. The allocation is happening outside of the ERP. The inventory is happening outside of the supply chain is happening. And you are not necessarily using the ERP.
Well, I mean, that could very well make sense.
It'd be interesting to know what's, the automated warehouse system. Is that a WMS system? Like, what is it the system couldn't do without that module or bolt-on?
I can almost guarantee that is probably going to be the entire order management piece. That is going to be your order orchestration piece. That is going to be your allocation, the SNOP.
The whole thing.
That's what ERP is.
Yeah. But does that imply that ProcessPro doesn't have all that type of functionality off the shelf?
They would have. They didn't use it.
Okay. They have. Okay, not implemented properly. Gotcha.
Either implemented or it didn't work for them. They are still happy because they just didn't know. So they paid a lot of money. They were still happy.
Stars. Jim gave it 5 stars. Good old Jim.
We have some comments, guys. We can cover those, or if you guys have any comments, we can cover those. Let's take this, I guess. I mean, we don't need these screens anymore.
Anders, hallelujah, my friend. I love talking about ERP sales method, and anybody who's sat through any of my webinars, how here's a joke for the audience. What's the difference between a car salesman and an ERP salesman, Dave?
What's that, Andy?
A car salesman knows he's lying to you.
You're saying that the ERP salesperson has been lied to?
Yes. Not the ERP salesperson's usually only telling you what they were told to tell.
That was my inference. Yes.
Right.
I love Andrew's comment, but and it has been a while since we've talked about this, but I do think that it is a bit of a bait and switch when we like Sam, to your point on this one in particular, only having the 6 screens, 6 screenshots, no demos. I mean, having all this kind of information gated, and I believe from the OEM perspective, thinking that's helpful in the sales cycle, limiting what information is out there. And the reality of it is, I think, because we have access to so much information today, people are at least, I think, and Andy, you'll be the best one to answer this, but asking hopefully more questions and use case
the right
questions. Use case questions around what's actually happening with the software versus just kind of blindly accepting, yeah, we can do that. Like, well, can you show me how?
Yeah.
No, not yet, but we'll get to that. And don't worry, you can do that.
Here's the trick. Whenever an ERP salesman, when you ask them a question, they go, yeah, that means they don't have a clue. If they say yes, that means it's yes. Little trick for you all.
I think one other thing that, kind of popped up in my mind just about this same topic, and Andy and Sam, I'd love to get your take on it. But, I think because we talk about, we'll try to think about these use cases. But I think one of the best places that you could kind of identify within your own current processes are look for the things that you're already manually touching, right? How many times do you have to pull data out of your current system, out of your current processes, do something with that, right? That'd be a great place to start from the standpoint of, hey, how does your system, how does your solution handle a case like this? To try to give people a little bit more, ammo to say, hey, here's what I need to uncover, about this particular solution that we're evaluating.
Exactly. And typically, from our experience, what we like to do is whenever we are starting any ERP project, we ask them to send every single spreadsheet that they have. Okay, literally everything, because we want to know what's going on there. And you'll be shocked. 80% of the processes are probably sitting in those spreadsheets.
Yeah, I've seen it. I used to use them.
Exactly. You need to get the job done, man.
Right? Whatever it takes.
Exactly. That's how operations work. All right, guys. Any other comments before we are?
Well, just before we did the discussion today, I knew someone that had a lot of experience with exact software, and interesting. He said he has a client that got rid of it. Well, it says because they lied to him. That's always a relative thing, because it depends what they were asked and it depends what they heard, right? But they asked if it could do kits, and ProcessPro cannot. And what this person meant by kits is they send a customer a half a gallon of something and another 4.5 gallons of coating, and they mix it together and spray on bridges to protect the steel. So the two things together, I guess this guy calls that a kit, and apparently ProcessPro can't do that, which who knows? Sounds pretty basic, pretty simple.
But 60% of the time, I would say the customers are also the problem. They somehow make their mind that, these are going to be kits. That from the ERP perspective, these are not kits.
Hey, attrition, right? I mean, the people that learned the software when you bought it 10 years ago don't work here anymore. Yeah. If you don't keep on getting additional education and training and make sure your people are up to snuff, they're all making a software.
Exactly, guys. Any more comments? All right, guys, that's it for today. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another solution or the vendor. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Have a great day, everybody.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Dave Chrysler, head over to thechrysler.club. It's THECRYSLER.CLUB. If you want to learn more about Andy Pratico, head over to essoft.com. It's ESSOFT.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to get you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.